You're walking through a bookstore looking for that awesome new adventure series your friends told you about, but you can't find it. You can't find the store system either. I mean, it's like they all went on break as soon as you walked into the store. So you're wandering through these aisles blindly. You don't know where you're going. One of the aisles you walk through is the comic book aisle. Now you stop and look at some of them. I mean, some of the titles look really interesting, and the art looks gorgeous. But, you know, they're just all about dumb superheroes. You move on. Now, many of us have read comic books. I have. I have been reading comic books since I was like 11, and I love them. But many of us don't know the history of comic books or the different genres and styles that comic books take on now. I will be talking about the origin of comic books and these different permutations of comic books. Now, Japanese had comic books in the 1700s, or a form of them. They actually had woodblock prints. This is what a woodblock print looks like. Have a picture, then you have text, or you had a caption. And you put them all together and you got a story or a book. They illustrated their fairy tales. And Italy, where everything amazing comes from, of course, they had fumetti, which were small, satirical, or funny, like comic strips that were published. Now, the first comic book in America is, according to Dan Markstein of Toonpedia, which is a webpage that is devoted to cartoons and comics, was The Adventures of Obadiah Oldbuck, published in 1842. It was not actually an American comic. It was translated. It was a Swiss comic. A man named Topfer wrote it. Mr. Scott McCloud, the author of Understanding Comics, called Topfer the father of modern comics for his contributions to this. Actually, what he did, he had a picture and a caption since voice bubbles were not invented yet. Nevertheless, he contributed to 1938, Superman appears. 1939, Batman appears. The superhero genre is here, and comic books as we know them begin to exist. But you know, it's been a really long time since 1939. I mean, your parents weren't even born in 1939. Things have changed. Different comic books and different styles have emerged. True crime and horror became popular in the 1950s. I mean, man, comic books were popular in the 1950s. According to Malcolm Willits, Walt Disney's comics and stories sold 3 million copies within 1 month in 1953. 3 million copies! That's what Americans were doing while Russians were sending men to the moon and dogs into space. Now, during the 60s, the term graphic novel was invented, and in 1978, Will Eisner used it to describe his book, A Contract with God and Other Tenement Stories. Now, a graphic novel is not exactly the same thing as a comic book. Excuse me. Right. They tend to have more detailed plots, longer plots sometimes, in terms of arc length, more subplots, and usually, but not always, the art is more detailed because they don't have to come out on a monthly or weekly basis. Mouse, for example, is usually a pretty good example of a graphic novel. It was written by Art Spiegelman, and it's about his father's experiences as a Jew in a Nazi death camp. He uses mice and cats to explain that the cats were the Nazis, of course. Neil Gaiman and his graphic novel Sandman is also a pretty good example. I have it here. There are about 10 of these kinds of books. They are also collected into big editions now. They have, I don't know, it looks like a comic book, but graphic novel. This storyline spans decades and addresses topics like free will, personal responsibility, change, love, death. All those good things. They are not really, superheroes jumping off buildings to save the girl right as she hits the ground, and not so much really, actually. Another kind of comic book that has been becoming popular in the United States as well are mangas. Mangas have been popular in Korea, Japan, and China for years. And this is what they look like. This is a manga. Most of them have a very particular drawing style, which is one thing that sets them apart from graphic novels and comic books. They all have gigantic eyes, little tiny noses, and pointy chins, and they're all generally very tall and skinny outside body proportions. They also tend to have really long, complicated plots and tons and tons of characters. They are usually identified by the target audience. Shonen is targeted towards boys. Shoujo is targeted towards girls. So this is a shoujo comic. As you can see, the art all looks the same. It's not as detailed at all compared to the graphic novels, but it does have its own particular style. I'm sorry again. Now these are some of the kinds of comic books that are out there that have developed throughout comic books. Really long history, actually. If you count it from Japanese comic books, it's close to 300 years. And it's not just superheroes, you guys. There are, really long stories. You thought War and Peace was long. Some of these are like huge. And really short stories. They have still have superheroes. They have books targeted for girls and guys and everything in between. So the next time you're in that bookstore, you might want to take a look at some of those comic books. There are tons of them! This is only what I picked up one night at the library. Thank you for listening, and I'm afraid I have to apologize for coughing and my inability to pronounce the letter N. I got a cold, and it didn't go away in time. Sorry, and thank you again.